God's Not Dead was one of those movies with a trailer that pretty much told you everything you needed to know about not only the plot of the movie, but whether you would enjoy it or not. When I saw the trailer for this movie, I started laughing out loud. Not because the trailer was intentionally hilarious, it wasn't, but rather because of how silly I knew this movie was going to be. When the trailer was initially released, several YouTube atheists had a go at it, and there have already been some good reviews of the full movie. But since I've yet to see the step-by-step walkthrough I've been hoping for, I decided to get off my haunches and do it myself. Our movie begins with a montage of some of the characters going about their morning. Walking with your girlfriend, riding with your overbearing dad, begging the timer on your microwave to go faster. Come on. I don't think that's how microwaves work. Once the montage settles down, we are introduced to our hero.
Wheaton, Josh Wheaton.
Wait, seriously? That's the protagonist's name?
Wheaton, Josh Wheaton.
Isn't that the guy who made Firefly and the Avengers? Oh, right. So what's this kid's name again? Oh, sure. That's way different. Anyway, Josh is a Christian college freshman who signs up for philosophy class as his elective. But Mr. Polo here warns Josh he should probably look for a different teacher.
Come on, man, it can't be that bad. Think Roman Colosseum, lions, people cheering for your death.
Huh. I thought throwing college students into a violent scenario, where they'll likely end up injured, was only allowed in the athletics department. Hey, wait a second. Who's this student?
What does PRC stand for?
People's Republic of China.
Oh. Seriously?
Oh, yes. Always serious.
It's funny because he's foreign. Next, we're introduced to... Wait 1 second. Doodly 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 doodly. Wow. Who needs characterization when you can just tell your audience everything they need to know about a person just by showing their orgy of liberal-leaning bumper stickers? Why stop there? Why not an I hate guns sticker or even a Calvin peeing on Ronald Reagan sticker? Do you understand this character yet? Do you? Anyway, this walking billboard for all things unholy finds that her GPS has been stolen and calls her boyfriend for help. He says he's busy, but tells her that he's made reservations for them later that week at Le Rive Gauche.
Wait, you'll take me to Le Rive Gauche, but you won't take the time to give me directions?
What's in it for me?
You're kidding, right? You're serious?
He is? What kind of jerk bribes their girlfriend before they'll provide simple directions? Oh, this is going to be one of those kind of movies. Okay. Moving on, we are briefly introduced to 2 more characters. I'll just cover these quickly. This lady has dementia, and this lady is her daughter, whom she doesn't immediately recognize. And if you're wondering what the lady with dementia has to do with the rest of the movie, you clearly haven't seen many of these inspirational types of movies. Cut to our main hero arriving at the infamous philosophy course and the introduction of the teacher he was warned about.
I am Professor Radisson.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I am Professor Radisson.
Professor Radigan?
Professor Radisson.
Breaking Badison?
Professor Radisson.
Seriously? That's the name we're going with? Why not go the extra step and just name him Dr. Evil, or Professor Hyde, or even Professor Marty McSly? Anyway, Professor Radigan,
Radisson.
whatever, starts off the first class of Introduction to Philosophical Thought thusly.
Bertrand Russell, Ludwig Feuerbach, Bertolt Brecht, Friedrich Nietzsche, Ayn Rand, George Santayana, Democritus, Denis Diderot, David Hume, John Stuart Mill, Albert Camus, Richard Dawkins, Sigmund Freud, Noam Chomsky. What do they all have in common?
They're all here to play the family feud.
They are atheists.
That was my second guess.
Based on the 16th century French athéisme, from the Greek theos, meaning God, and from the prefix a, meaning as it always does in Greek, without, in short, each of the thinkers I named took the strong position that there is no God, as opposed to the weak position of agnosticism. Gnostic from the Greek gnosos, to know, and again with the prefix a, meaning to not know, or more accurately, to doubt the existence of a supreme being.
Mr. Rotisserie has left out a few things here and there, so let's put on our thinking caps and sort through it, shall we? First of all, Radisson is correct that the colloquial use of agnosticism refers to someone who isn't sure one way or the other about God's existence, but that isn't the only definition of the word. Gnosticism and agnosticism deal with someone's position on whether they can know something for certain or not. These terms are not mutually exclusive with atheism and theism, which refer to whether someone believes in a God or not. Here's a helpful chart to illustrate my point. If someone were to believe in a God but not be completely certain of its existence, they would be an agnostic theist. If someone were to not believe in a God and were certain that there are no gods, they would be a Gnostic atheist. I, however, am an agnostic atheist. I don't believe in any gods, but I can't be certain that they definitely don't exist. Of course, there are multiple definitions for any word, and I've only scratched the very surface of this discussion. But these definitions help to illustrate the difference between belief and knowledge, which leads us to this specific claim by Mr. Let Us In.
Each of the thinkers I named took the strong position that there is no God.
This statement is flatly wrong. While these thinkers are atheists, not all of them are Gnostic atheists. In fact, Richard Dawkins and Bertrand Russell, both prominent atheist authors, have stated explicitly that while they don't believe in a God, they do not know for certain that there are no gods. You would think a philosophy professor would know this, but maybe he just hasn't gotten there yet. Let's continue to listen.
This semester I propose that we refuse to waste our limited time together debating the existence of the big man in the sky, the myth of a benevolent, all-powerful, supernatural being.
Wait, what? Why the heck would you cut away in the middle like that? Just to be clear, that wasn't my edit. That was the movie. I guess these two new characters must have a really important scene if we're just going to cut away from the main focus of the movie like that. Nope. This scene is merely here to let you know that this guy just flew into town to meet this guy. They make small talk for a minute before finally saying,
God is good.
All the time.
And all the time?
God is good.
God is dead.
Again, that wasn't my edit. The movie just jumped to these guys for no reason other than to set up a segue that takes us right back to Radisson that wouldn't have been needed if we hadn't cut to those guys in the first place. This movie is so frustrating. So Radisson continues,
And with your permission, I would like to bypass this senseless debate altogether and jump to the conclusion, which every sophomore is already aware of: there is no God.
That's bull. I would bet you money that there are sophomores in philosophy that believe in a God. Or I would bet you money if I weren't a bunny rabbit. I could bet you grass or carrots.
All that I require from each of you is that you fill in the papers I've just given you with 3 little words: God is dead.
And thus we arrive at the main conflict of the movie, as well as one of the biggest problems with the movie's premise. Just to be clear, Radisson is telling his students to write the words "God is dead" on a sheet of paper, sign their name to it, and hand it in for a grade. This isn't an illustration or anything either. Mr. Radisson wants his students to deny the existence of God for a grade. Understandably, Josh refuses on the grounds that he is a Christian. Mr. Radisson insists, but Josh repeats that he won't do it. Then Mr. Radisson proposes this.
If you cannot bring yourself to admit that God is dead for the purposes of this class, then you will need to defend the antithesis, that God is not dead, and you'll need to do it in front of this class from the podium. And if you fail, as you shall, you will fail this section and lose 30% of your final grade right off the bat. Are you ready to accept that?
Okay, this is really starting to tick me off. First of all, how on earth is Josh the only student who has a problem with this? This is an American college, right? America, the country where, according to the Pew Research Center, 71% of the population believe in a God with absolute certainty? You seriously expect me to believe that Josh is the only person in the class to raise an objection? Secondly, allow me to tell you something that, if heard by the writers of this movie, would blow their minds. If I were in this situation and Mr. Radisson gave this assignment to write "God is dead" and to sign it for a grade, I would refuse. But Mr. Bunny, I hear you cry, you're an atheist. What possible reason could you have to refuse? I'm so glad you asked, random person. As I stated earlier, I'm an agnostic atheist. As such, I don't believe in any God's existence, but I also don't know for certain that there are no gods. Mr. Radisson's assignment essentially puts me in the position to state that I know that there are no gods, a position that I do not stand by. This leads us to the following statement.
If you cannot bring yourself to admit that God is dead for the purposes of this class, then you will need to defend the antithesis, that God is not dead.
Radisson is completely wrong again. Refusing to state that God is dead does not mean that I automatically defend the statement, God is not dead. Radisson is committing the fallacy of the false dilemma. He's essentially stating that there are only two options. Either you know God exists, God is not dead, or you know that God doesn't exist, God is dead. The fallacy arises when Radisson assumes that the only options are Gnostic ones, where you know for certain. As I've already stated, I am agnostic in regards to God. I do not know for certain whether a God exists or not. Therefore, I do not support either of these statements. Now, if Radisson were to insist I do the assignment anyway, or defend my position in front of the class, I would warn him that I suspect his assignment is unethical. I would inform him that if he continues to try and force this assignment on me, I would file a complaint with the university. And here we run into another problem with this movie. Through the rest of the movie, Josh tells several people what's going on in his class. He tells his girlfriend, he tells his parents, he even tells a local pastor. But at no point does Josh ever inform the university of this clear infraction of his First Amendment rights. If Josh would just do that, the university would likely side with him and force Radisson to either amend his assignments and attitude or face disciplinary action. This leads to the obvious question, why doesn't Josh inform the university? Because then there wouldn't be a movie. The writers likely ignored that obvious course of action since they needed it to appear as though Josh had no choice but to defend his faith against the big bad atheist professor. Next time on A Bunny Watches, we'll see how Josh reacts to Radisson's demands. Spoilers, he'll make the Kristen Stewart face more. We'll watch as a lady interacts with another human being for the first time. I like your face, Rag! And be subjected to a completely pointless cameo. I bet it's gonna be Hercules.